Why on earth do we crave ice cream when we know it causes weight gain? I mean, you've been there, right? You're just standing in front of the freezer, the door is wide open, and your mind is suddenly waging this intense war against itself. You really want it, but you also really don't want it. You're trapped in what psychologists call a classic approach avoidance paradox. Today, we're going to put you, the main character of your own life, under the microscope to see how you navigate the absolute maze that is your own mind. All right, let's dive right into this explainer: frustration, conflict, and your mind's defense mechanisms. Think of this as kind of a user manual for human behavior. We're going to systematically unpack exactly what happens when our deepest desires clash with cold, hard reality. Starting us off with part 1, the anatomy of frustration, the block. Consider this the first chapter of our internal hero's journey. We throw the word frustrated around all the time, don't we? Like, traffic is frustrating, a slow internet connection is frustrating. But psychologically speaking, it's not just a minor annoyance. It is a literal barricade placed squarely in your path. Frustration is defined as the emotional tension resulting from the blocking of a desire. That's the absolute key phrase here. This emotional tension happens the exact moment your goal-seeking activity is obstructed. You have a goal, you move toward it, and bam, you hit a brick wall. Think about what that shockwave of tension actually physically feels like. Your chest tightens up, your breathing gets shallow, your focus just zeroes in entirely on the obstacle. That visceral, full-body reaction, that is true frustration. Which brings us to section 2, the clash of motives, the dilemma. So what actually puts that block in our way? Well, surprisingly often, it's us. Psychologist Kurt Lewin pointed out that conflict is brought on by a clash of motives or opposing desires within the individual themselves. You're essentially fighting a two-front war inside your own head. Understanding how these internal wars are fought is absolutely crucial. There are 3 main types of conflicts, starting with the approach conflict. This is when you're choosing between 2 equally attractive positive goals. Positive versus positive. Sounds like a great problem to have, right? It's like choosing between 2 incredible job offers or maybe 2 amazing vacation spots. But despite how good the options are, your brain essentially short-circuits trying to pick between 2 incredibly appealing things at the exact same time. The sheer fear of missing out on one causes this paralyzing psychological tension. And that brilliantly illustrates the second type, the approach avoidance conflict. Let's bring it right back to that ice cream from our very first scenario. In this conflict, you aren't choosing between 2 separate things. No, you're faced with a single goal that has a strong positive value, hey, it tastes amazing, and a strong negative value, it causes weight gain. A single goal pulls you in 2 complete opposite directions. This creates an agonizing psychological tug-of-war, trapping you in a highly tense dilemma where literally every step forward feels like a step backward. Finally, we have the avoidance conflict. This means choosing between 2 equally strong negative goals. Negative versus negative. Honestly, this is the most dreadful conflict of them all. You are forced to make a choice between 2 equally terrible options. Do you pay a massive, painful repair bill for your suddenly broken car, or do you take on the equally painful burden of years of debt to buy a brand new one? Both options are absolutely awful. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and no matter what you choose, you aren't getting anything you actually desire. Moving on to section 3, roots of maladjustment, the fallout. Okay, so you're blocked, you're deeply conflicted, your tension is steadily rising. What happens when this emotional tension finally breaks our internal equilibrium? Well, we experience maladjustment. The pressure becomes simply too much to bear and our normal operating systems begin to fail. And the root causes of this failure aren't just isolated events, they compound. Imagine dealing with a sudden emotional shock while simultaneously navigating the stress of a broken home, struggling with school factors, and facing immense social pressures or rigid parental attitudes. Add in anxieties about your physique and appearance or the crushing weight of poverty, and things escalate quickly. These aren't just separate issues, they are compounding weights that stack on top of each other, constantly testing and ultimately breaking our psychological limits. Which leads us to our final section, number 4, the mind's defense mechanisms, the rescue. When that tension reaches a breaking point from all those root causes, you aren't just left defenseless. This is the final act of our journey, where the brain's completely unconscious strategies step in to save the day. A defense mechanism is defined as an unconscious psychological strategy used to tackle frustrating situations and maintain self-respect. Now, I want to highly emphasize the word unconscious here. These aren't bad habits you're actively choosing to do. Actually, think of them as your mind's overprotective bodyguards. Before you even realize what's happening, these bodyguards instinctively step in, throw a shield around your ego, reduce your internal tension, and safeguard you against crippling psychological distress. And there is a massive variety of tactics these overprotective bodyguards can use. We have aggression, compensation, identification, negativism, withdrawal, and repression. Let's quickly break down the unique flavor of rescue each one provides. Your mind might use aggression to forcefully attack the source of frustration, like lashing out at a partner after a stressful day at work. It might use compensation to cover up a perceived deficiency. Think of someone who feels academically inadequate, pouring all their energy into becoming a dominant athlete. Identification is when you attach yourself to someone else's success, like a diehard sports fan who feels a personal sense of victory when their team wins. Negativism involves a stubborn resistance to outside suggestions, kind of like a knee-jerk refusal to cooperate just to maintain a sense of control. Withdrawal is exactly what it sounds like, completely removing yourself from the world of action, like ghosting a social event to avoid the danger of social failure entirely. And finally, repression, where your mind simply buries a painful memory or desire so deep you forget it even exists. Basically, your mind will either attack, substitute, or completely retreat to keep you safe. One incredibly fascinating mechanism is rationalization. This operates in two forms with brilliant names: sour grapeism, which is dismissing what you cannot have as undesirable, and sweet lemonism, convincing yourself that what you currently have is actually the best. Sour grapeism is telling yourself you didn't really want that promotion anyway because, it would have been way too much extra work. Sweet lemonism, on the other hand, is a bit funny if you think about it. It's like convincing yourself that getting dumped was actually the best thing that ever happened to you because, well, now you finally have more time to learn how to play the accordion. It is the ultimate face-saving device where we invent completely false reasons to reduce our guilt and restore our bruised ego. And this brilliantly illustrates another major mechanism: projection. Projection is perceiving in others the undesirable motives and traits which you yourself possess. This is fascinating because it essentially makes us the ultimate hypocrites. I mean, we've all seen this in action, right? It's the coworker who constantly complains that everyone else in the office is lazy when they're the ones secretly watching YouTube videos all day long. By putting the blame for our own failures onto others or upon unfavorable environmental factors, we completely protect our own self-image from taking a hit. Let's move to a concept originally developed by Freud: sublimation. Sublimation is the process of redirecting socially unacceptable desires along desirable channels. And this has real clinical weight to it. When your original drive is completely blocked by society, your mind accepts a socially approved substitute goal. Think of a person with intense aggressive impulses who channels that raw, socially unacceptable energy into becoming a star rugby player, or maybe a high-powered, fiercely competitive defense attorney. It turns potentially destructive energy into something incredibly productive and culturally acceptable. Then we have regression, which is the unconscious backtracking to behavior appropriate at an earlier age to escape reality. Sometimes the pressure of a conflict is just too heavy. So the mind's best, most desperate defense is to simply backtrack to a less mature level of development to save the ego from collapsing under the weight of reality. And this isn't just about childhood, folks. It is the fully grown adult throwing a literal temper tantrum, stomping their feet and shouting because the office printer jammed right before a meeting. So, that leaves us with a pretty big question. Which defense mechanism is your mind using right now? Are you projecting your stress onto your friends or coworkers? Are you practicing a little sweet lemonism about a frustrating situation in your life? Or maybe you're withdrawing entirely. The next time you feel that emotional tension block your path, remember this explainer and ask yourself, how is my mind trying to rescue me today?